When I was 22, I got my first job in New York City and had to move out of Jersey because the commute would have destroyed me, but I barely had any money. So when I found a ridiculously cheap room listed on Craigslist in Hell's Kitchen, I jumped on it without thinking too hard about the red flags. The landlord who showed me the place was socially awkward and stiff, but the apartment looked decent enough, and he mentioned I'd have one roommate named Bren who was quiet and kept to himself, which sounded perfect, until Bren never actually showed himself. Not during the tour, not when I moved in with my dad making a ton of noise, even though we clearly heard someone moving around behind his closed door. That first night after my dad left, I heard Bren's door open, and then the apartment's front door slam shut before I could introduce myself, and later I woke up to slow footsteps stopping right outside my bedroom door, the outline of feet visible in the crack of light underneath, as whoever it was just stood there silently before walking away, followed by hours of heavy thumping from the other room. And the next day Bren was gone again. So when I came back from a quick 7-Eleven run and saw his bedroom door cracked open with the light on, I finally knocked and pushed it open, only to find the room completely empty, except for a single classroom chair in the corner. No bed, no clothes, nothing, which made my stomach drop. And when I called the landlord to ask what was going on, I heard his phone ringing from inside my closet, the ringing stopping after 2 tones like he declined the call. And that's when it hit me that there probably never was a Bren, and that the landlord was inside the apartment. So I locked myself in the bathroom and called the police, who arrived and found him hiding under my bed. And to make it worse, he wasn't even the real landlord. There was no actual lease, so I moved back home immediately. But somehow my luck with roommates only got worse, because months later I rented a furnished room near a chicken farm from a 70-year-old man named Ben on a week-to-week agreement, and everything seemed fine, until one night he opened my bedroom door while I was sleeping and rasped, "Stay out of the basement," accusing me of going down there even though I hadn't, which of course made me curious enough to check it out the next day while he was gone. And in the basement, I found a sealed-off room with bloodstains on the concrete, black bags stacked in the corner long enough to hold bodies, a rotting stench in the air, and a camera pointed at a workbench. So I snapped a photo and packed my stuff just as he returned, hearing him stomp down to the basement while I ran to my car and drove to my brother's farm, where we called the sheriff, and Ben was arrested before he could clear out whatever was in those bags. Though deputies wouldn't tell me details, and you'd think after that I'd stop trusting strangers. But then came college dorm life with a roommate I'll call John, who seemed harmless but awkward, barely conversational, and oddly distant, until my bags started being moved around, and one stormy night I realized the flashes I thought were lightning were actually his phone camera taking pictures of me while I slept. When I snooped on his laptop while he was gone, I found folders filled with photos of me in bed and the contents of my backpack, so I recorded evidence and reported him. But on my last night before switching rooms, I woke up to his mattress springs creaking and heard him standing over my bed in the dark, breathing quietly before returning to his own bed, and I left at sunrise, thinking that had to be the end of my nightmare roommate streak, except later I sublet an apartment from my dad's friend Kathy, and shared it with a 60-year-old woman named Betty, who started having strange nighttime episodes where she'd stare at me from the hallway muttering incoherently and claim not to remember it in the morning, until one night I woke at 1:30 a.m. to find her standing at the edge of my bed, in the dark, holding a large kitchen knife, groaning in a half-awake state, while I screamed and scrambled into the corner, only for her to wander out of the broom as if nothing happened. And after barricading my door and surviving until morning, we later realized she likely had severe sundowning syndrome that caused confusion and aggression after dark. But in that moment, it felt like I'd barely escaped being stabbed in my sleep. And after all of that, I finally understood that sometimes the scariest part of moving somewhere new isn't the neighborhood or the price. It's the people behind the closed doors, the ones who stand outside your room at 2 a.m., the ones who watch you while you sleep, and the ones who were never even real to begin with.